What's up, family? All right, today we're just going to get right into it. We're talking about taking our ideas, the creative that happens in your mind, and getting it out into the wild. Let me make sure I'm actually saying your name right because I've only read it and written it. Fabian, is that how you say your name?
It's Fabienne. That's
Fabian, like fabulous, almost what Fabian.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. So, and if you're looking at this and not just listening to it, you might notice that we have the same lighting. So apparently we have the same lighting director. But thank you so much, Fabian, for joining us today. I was so impressed with your portfolio, just the work that you've been able to do. Number one, just doing content for digital media brands, and now it seems like you've got just a laundry list of companies that you've worked with. So, without further ado, just talk to us about your background. How did you get into this type of content production work?
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Mark, it's nice meeting you. Okay, so let's get right into it. I didn't go to film school. I actually went to school for, HR and hospitality.
Really?
Yeah, the first job I had outside of, after I graduated was I was a HR coordinator. And then I liked it, but it was very, like, slow for me, and I really did a lot of events when I was in college. So, I transitioned from that into an events coordinator, and that's when I, like, moved to the city, in New York City, and, I started doing events and, like, event production, but, like, more, like, corporate, it
Uh-huh.
was very, like, suit energy at first,
Yeah.
and then after that, I went to Essence Magazine, and I was doing actually some advertising, so ad coordination and, like, supporting, like, the magazine's ad pages and doing a little bit of Essence Fest stuff, and then that's when I met a colleague of mine who was in the marketing department, and then we started throwing these day parties. And, so we started throwing these day parties, we were charging people like $1, and so I was still doing, like, event coordination then too, I started freelancing. Long story short, I mostly stayed in the event coordination and production space until about 2007. I joined this agency as their event lead, and then they were, it was kind of like startup vibes, so at one point, they were like, "Hey, we kinda don't really need this position right now, but we do need a creative producer. It's the same skill set, like, would you be interested?" And the fun fact is that my dad is in production, like, he's a director, composer, and, like, he's just always been behind a camera. He used to do music videos and then, commercials and stuff like that, so I grew up around it, I just
Yeah.
didn't it didn't correlate for me, and so when she asked me, I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool," and also I want a job.
Right.
I internally transitioned into being a creative producer, and that's when I really learned about, like, branded content and, like, pitching and, like, creating these ideas and, like, packaging it and, all of that stuff, and then shortly after that, I got laid off. They laid off, like, almost the whole team, and one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, somebody I know needs an assistant for a project, but it's a really cool project." And at that point, I'm like, dang, I'm a manager. Like, I don't want to be somebody's assistant. But it was for a TV show called Wu Tang American Saga. And it was to assist Chris Robinson, who was the
Mm.
and director for the pilot. And I was like, first of all, I'm a Wu Tang fan. And second of all, I'm a Chris Robinson fan. And so I became his assistant for like 4 or 5 months, and that's when I got my, like, on-set production experience money can't buy, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And did the development of that show from before. They had only casted 2 people when I joined, and yeah, that's when I never turned back from production since then. After that, I worked at BET and, the rest of the things.
I love it. And so you're based in New York.
I'm in LA now.
LA now. That's what I was wondering, like, when you said move to the city. Okay, so I'm following. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, hello," and then hello, we got the whole time difference on this call.
No, yeah. It's okay.
So, So I want to go back to the branded content piece because I think that's really important for early stage creators who are trying to find their space, whether they're on the content side of things or whether they're the talent. Talk to me about the reality of how content gets made. Because I think sometimes there might just be this impression that there's just, there's all this work to go around, and then there's like, oh my gosh, we need influencers, we need talent. And then you just call people up and people are just working randomly. Like, talk
Yeah,
to me
yeah.
about like the process of getting things made and how creators find their way into a project. How do they either get attached to it or hired on in the project itself or to promote it?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good question. So I know I've worked for a few agencies as well, and that's kind of like where things start. I think a lot of companies are outsourcing now. Very rare for companies to have in-house like creative houses. I think the only people that really do is like Apple or, a few of the legacy companies, but for the most part a lot of these companies are outsourcing. So essentially I've actually worked on both the brand and the agency side, but the agency, let's say Dove is like, "Hey, we know we wanna do a campaign. We know we want it to reach this demographic. What do you have?" Like, that's the brief, you know what I mean? And then and then it's, sometimes they accept bids from multiple different agencies, or they already have, a relationship with the agency that they're working with. And then it's up to the agency to take that brief, that creative brief, and just kind of run with it. And so that's where like that creative director role comes in. Some of those creative producer roles come in. And typically people pitch like, 3 to 7 ideas of like, okay, Dove deodorant and you want to reach, black youth. We're going to like do a video series of young boys who are athletes, like figuring out themselves. I'm literally just riffing this.
Mhm.
But like
Yes.
young athlete boys and like them like kind of learning themselves and figuring out their game, but also wanting to smell good or something like that. Like that would be an idea. And so typically when you're pitching these ideas, depending on, what the deliverables or the KPIs are that the brand wants to reach, you're kind of thinking about it from a 360 perspective, like, and that means, okay, if it's a video component, like, am I gonna see it on my phone? Am I gonna see it on my, laptop? Am I gonna see it in a billboard? Am I hearing it on the radio? Like, what is that experience going to be? Is it an activation or, is it just content?
Mhm.
So then it's like, once that idea is solidified, it's like, okay, well, how are we gonna get this out to the people? Oh, Kyrie Irving has a school or like, like a coaching program. Let's partner with him. And so like those ideas kind of just start being fleshed out.
Mhm.
It really does take the creative producer, the creative director to be in the know, or partner with people who are really good, like influencer marketing people that used to
Mm.
do PR. Sometimes it kind of crosses over. But yeah, those are all the like job roles and the people involved in those ideas. I will say when you see this like lack of diversity in some of these campaigns, it's mostly because people are lazy and they don't want to do the research to go and look. And they're just like, oh, Kyrie Irving, and that's it. You know what I mean? But they're not thinking of like maybe a, middle tier or no name person that's doing even more of the work, but they're
Mhm.
not, like doing the research to figure out who in the community is, the best point of contact. And so that's really what I think makes like a really good creative producer or creative director better than the other person because they're really taking the time. I hope I answered your question. I wanna know where I'm
You did, and I have a follow-up. I wanna think solutions oriented for the talent side of things. If you are someone who might be that mid-tier or even just emerging, what things do they need to have in place? Or what action should they be taking to at least get on the radar of creative producers? I mean, is it just as simple as like, oh, I'm gonna just network with people on LinkedIn, or do I need to physically go to events in real life, go to conferences? Like, how does one person who may not even know where to look, where to start, how do they get on the radar of people who are the decision makers to involve them in those creative projects?
Yeah. I would suggest, like, bare bones, the visibility and your SEO are really important, because if you're thinking
Mm,
of someone who doesn't really know, but they are gonna do a quick search, if I'm searching for, like, youth basketball, I guess this is the theme for today, youth
yeah.
basketball, camps or something, and you're a coach and you post it on Instagram and about like your camps, or like your content should be searchable. So
Mm,
I think visibility is like the most important, because it's not always about the number of followers, but it is just showing like your work, like showing how consistent you are, like who you reach. We can even pivot to, let's say, a content creator that's like focused on beauty. What does their Instagram emulate a beauty content, or is it kind of like all over the place? And I don't mean that to say that like you should be niched down, because I know that's like a constant conversation, but I think that your message should be clear about the things that you care about, and, you should be findable, essentially.
mhm. I think that's really good because I mean, I know with the conversation around AI and just how a lot of these learning language models are, discovering content, if you will, or more like aggregating content, the conversation around SEO kind of feels like it's kind of taking a back seat a little bit, at least from, a lot of the people that I've been listening to and following. But I think that is so key, like making sure that you're findable. And something that comes to mind is just making sure that what people are searching for and or that keyword that you are trying to dominate, that you are in that conversation and that you are at least a participant,
Yeah,
at best a thought leader or a cultural a culture driver, a conversation starter when it comes to whatever space that you're in. I think something that we cannot skip over is, because I do wanna, like, talk about a little bit more of your journey, but for people who are, like, trying to find their way and navigate, through, one, that discoverability, and if they were to make contact, one, what should people be expecting in terms of budgets? I cannot tell you how wide-ranging
yeah,
advice and, the experiences seem to be. Obviously, if we're talking UGC, that's a totally different bucket.
yeah,
But I just wanna say, or focus in on people who they've maybe built an audience, like, to your point, they may not have over 10,000 or, 100,000 followers, but you've got proof of concept. It's clear that you've got some, artistic direction behind what you're doing.
yeah,
You're telling a story. What should people expect if someone like you should, hop in the DMs and say, "Hey, we're interested in working with you."
yeah.
And also on the flip side, give a sense of like what you're thinking through when you're kind of working through a budget and to engage talent.
Yeah, great questions. The game is so messed up right now, I will say. The game is awful, and I say that from, like, the creative perspective and also the person that's, like, booking the talent perspective. There's such a huge range, especially if you've been content creating for the last 10 years. The budgets were way bigger 10 years ago, and at the same time, a lot of people don't understand how much things cost. So, let me give, like, a pointed thought. Um, I think the biggest thing is that it's always negotiable?
Yeah, negotiable.
Able to be negotiate.
Yes.
I'm like brain. Um, if the dollar sign isn't worth it to you, think about what, like, you would offer. to give the dollar sign. I mean, I don't think anybody should be making content for a brand, honestly, for less than, like, $3,500, and I'm talking, like, a reel and a post, you know what I mean? But
Mm,
there's always parameters where, okay, you do this reel and a post, maybe it's not up on your page forever, like, there's if we're talking about, like, giving people IP, if we're talking about allowing people to use your content for infinity amount of time, then I think the price tag should reflect that. I think that your likeliness as a content creator, as a artist, um, should not be for sale so easily, and I think that's when the dollar signs need to go high and then, like, the tens of thousands of dollars. Um, but at the same time, there are creators that they have so many followers, but they have no pointed demographic, and it's just
mm,
numbers of people. And so from the brand side, it's like if I go to this creator and they have 500,000 followers, but their engagement isn't that great, or all their followers are, on the East Coast and I'm running a West Coast campaign, like, I I think that there needs to be better discernment on who we pick. I have always been an advocate for, micro influencers actually having more reach. So, like, I'll give you an example. I did a campaign and we had budget for, let's say we had, like, $40,000. Um and the brand's biggest thing was they wanted visibility on the activation, they wanted people to talk about it, and, they kind of wanted to just connect culturally. To me, I'm not gonna that's so easy to blow all $40,000 on one person. Or you can find 10 micro influencers, people essentially who have, 5 to 15,000 followers in the right demographic. You see their page, their engagement is high because they've created like a community versus just, posting these things and it's just kind of like out there in the world. I think that that has more leverage and a better reach, at least for what we were working on. It was a local thing. That made more sense. And then you stretch the money a lot better. It's a quick bag for content creators. I'm not taking their likeness and like putting it on a Nike ad. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
an activation, whether they were in person or creating content leading up to it and they weren't even attending. I think people need to be more creative with their partnerships because it's not just about like, "Hey, can I pay you to be there?" And you post 3 times on your stories and 1 time on your feed, like, that's not really cultivating the experience, and I think that the influencer partnership or creative partnership needs to also be just as cultivated as the actual event or, content.
Hmm. I think that's super insightful, and I wonder from your perspective, what is like what inspires you? Who inspires you right now in the space? Like what is there a trend or is there a type of influencer or a type of content? Because I'm sure if you're always just ingesting what's happening in the zeitgeist, your filter for what you actually would just sit down and
Yeah.
consume for entertainment is probably pretty high.
Yeah.
So what is that? Who's grabbing your attention these days?
I think I'm definitely have been paying attention to a lot of like filmmakers, like indie filmmakers and just like I the board of directors trend that was kind of like earlier this year when that started off 2026. It was pretty much like people pinpointing who their board of directors were for the year. Um, and so who was on my board of directors? It was like the DP from Sinners, like Mara Kill, like these, like, very like, I know exactly who I am, I know my art, and this is the story that I'm sharing with the world, like, that type of energy. Um, I think that, PG Lang is always a brand that I have my eyes on, and I just love the intentionality of what they do, and it's just, like, so unique without being, like, artsy fartsy, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, they never come off that they're trying too hard, like, they just get it and they have a point of view, and it's just, like, very, a refresh of a breath of fresh air. I used to feel that way about Pierre Moss. I mean, I do wish that they would come back and make some things. But yeah, and even like Hanifa, like topicals, Glossier is always a brand that I'm paying attention to. I just love how clean their stuff is, and, like, the brand personifies what their product is, and their products are really good. Um, yeah, so there's a few brands that, like, I love and would even love to work with, or at least they reflect the type of, like, intentionality that I like to put in my work also.
Yeah, you put me on to a couple new names that I haven't heard before, so Imma have to do some homework after this episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
with obviously people that have inspired you, I'm sure you probably got a couple war stories because you've dealt with talent, you
Mhm.
know, and I feel like from the brand side, you've also dealt with companies that probably, let's just say allegedly, there might be a little ego in the room. Tell me the wildest onset story that you have.
Okay, it wasn't on set, but it was a phone call. I had to interview this is during the pandemic, so everything was, like, virtual. I had to interview the City Girls, for this spot that I did at BET, and it was supposed to be, like, celebrating Black Music Month, and, just working on record labels is just, like, a huge headache. I feel like people typically just always have and it's like no shade to them, but it's just like, oh, there's always a lot going on. Like there's a road manager, and then there's a daytime manager, and it's like too many cooks in the kitchen. So I think that
I totally get what you're it's so I come from the music side of things, so I'm like, it's so like, oh my gosh, that is so true. But go
I
ahead.
no, it's okay. I'm glad that you understood because it's just like, okay, but who am I talking to? Like, please just give me one person of contact. And it's not like I'm a regular, like I'm at BET. Like, please give me, like, this isn't, why is this a thing? But, anyways, I think with all of the lines of communication, something fell through the crack and they were sent a script and we got on the call and there was no script. And so, like, they didn't have the script. They were in transit from the airport or to the airport. Mind you, this is like a recorded call because I needed to use their audio from the interview for the spot. And they had like, it wasn't the most inviting experience. They weren't really excited to be on this call. It just didn't sound like they had any idea that it was happening. So now I'm trying to like smoosh it and now I'm like reading them the lines and now they have feedback of the lines. It was honestly the worst talent call I've ever been on and I'll never forget it.
Mm, my goodness. I mean, how did it end up resolving? Did you get what you needed for the call?
Sorry, what'd you say?
So did you end up getting what you needed for the call?
I mean, yeah, the spot. I mean, I have the thing, but it just wasn't. I'll send it to you if you.
Yes, please.
It just wasn't as it did what it needed to do. And for
Mhm.
like the city girls, like, we know their demographic, so it wasn't like it was a short 30-second spot. Like you can only say so much, but I was looking forward to them kind of like getting into more of the weeds of like their inspiration for music and just like the feeling of it all to celebrate Black Music Month. And that is not the material I got, but we made it work.
Yes. So jumping back to your career journey just a little bit, you clearly have been able to work with brands at every level. I want to zoom in a little bit, like startups, because I think for a lot of people, they got to create something out of nothing, especially when you are an early stage creator. How do you, because I think this is really, really important. How do you not like fall for shiny object syndrome and think, okay, if I'm going to start something from the ground up, that I'm one, either just going to copy the latest and greatest thing that's happening or get stuck in analysis paralysis because I'm just looking at ideas for days, but I'm not really like centered on exactly like what I'm trying to create. I'm wondering for you, like, especially I'm just assuming, like, some of the brands that you worked with, it seemed like you might have created and or worked on some of this programming from the ground up.
Yeah.
So, how do you decide on, what's the creative that we're gonna go with? What are we gonna pitch and we feel like is a strong idea? And in this, I'm creating a long response for you, so just buckle up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then it's like with figuring out, okay, what are we gonna pitch? What are we gonna create? How do you once you get into it, how do you know, like, "Oh, we should stick to this?" Or if it's early and we're not seeing the response that we're looking for, these are signs that we need to pivot. Like, I wanna just talk through those early stages and, like, what it's like to build something from the ground.
Yeah. Um, so for me, my common denominator is being as authentic as possible, and then, um I guess, like, building up marginalized communities as much as possible, and just being conscious of that with everything you do. Like, not everything I've created even touches that, but if there's a way to, like, incorporate it, that is a priority for me, but more than anything, the authenticity is, like, really important. So, like, nothing I try to stay very far away from, like, clickbaity things and you know that like some of that surface level stuff I don't do very well operating in those like creative spaces. Um would I even call that creative? I don't think so. So it's just like no shit. But it's just like okay, so there's that. I think that depending on the brief, there's for the most part everybody has already done the things, right? I think it's not necessarily about um, making sure nobody has done this before, but knowing your references. So, like, doing the research, if you have an idea, look it up and see, okay, has somebody done this before? If they've done it, how did they do it? Okay, how can we change it? How we can make it more unique? Um, and then when it comes to the pitching with a client, I will say, like, most of the time, clients are typically pushing back. Clients are typically not creative people. They have a lot of questions. They poke a lot of holes through things. So I think it's a combination of like knowing the client's temperament, if that's possible in advance, and kind of giving them options. So like, this is our like big budget idea. Like we're gonna go out the box. This is the risk. But this is why it works. And then
Uh-huh.
you kind of give them like tiers. So like you give them a middle one that like, oh, they'll probably be more comfortable with this, but this is how we can make it actually cool. And then you kind of give them and a creative director taught me this, like, a few years ago. You kinda, like, give them the dirt, like, also, like, this is another low level option, like, that you don't really wanna do it because it's kinda whack, but, like, if you wanna save money, I guess you can kinda be over here. That gets dangerous, though, because sometimes they pick that option and then you're like you know what I mean? Um, yeah, like, I think that's the thought process. Um Always being mindful of budget, especially if you already know the budget, not pitching things that are out already blown up and outside of the parameters because I think that as a client, it's like, "Okay, well, why are you showing me this? You know we don't have an extra, $200,000 to make it." Or they're gonna be like, "We love this and we wanna make it for the budget we have," and now it becomes impossible.
Yes.
It's like there is some type of, like, client management, and
Mm.
creative management. This is also why a lot of creative directors and line producers have beef, and, like, or, like, project managers have beef because one person is really focused on the budget, the other person's really focused on the creative, and that's, like, where that clash kinda comes in. Thankfully, I've been both positions, so I do try to create from a perspective of, like, I'm keeping the budget in mind.
Mhm. I think that's really, really key for the success of even talent who's like it seems like now more than ever, it's like even creators are making their own pseudo studios to even do content that ultimately gets them in the space to play with some of the bigger names and bigger brands. And I think the reality, especially when you start bankrolling your own creative, you realize like It is expensive. It is expensive out here. But I do wonder, what are some ways that people can keep cost in mind but still be innovative? And let's just put a a little carve out here. Like, we acknowledge that AI exists and all the above, but let's just put that. And I'm not anti AI. Trust you me,
Yeah,
but I think there has to be, from like people who work like on the ground and are being innovative with solutions that involve people and that involve ways to be innovative around like how you manage resources and
yeah.
talent on set. Like, what are some ways that you feel like are just tried and tested that you can be innovative and not break the bank?
Yeah, I think that collaboration is the answer to that, and, I'm kinda conflicted because the budgets are smaller, a lot of companies are hiring creatives that are doing multiple jobs for one price. And so that is frustrating from a creative perspective because now it's like, dang, like I just wanted to DP, but now I have to edit. You know what I mean? Like there's like this I wanna say expectation, but for the people who do the edit, the videography and the creative direction and the line producing, that one person that's doing 4, they're going to take the bag. Like, they're gonna take the bag, and that's why these lower budgets are going
Mm,
with they're going with these multifaceted creators. It's not a bad thing per se, like, if you love doing all of the things, but, like, those are 4 jobs, like,
yeah.
and I think that it's kind of erasing what the real process is. And sure, if you're the director and the DP and the editor, like I'm sure you do, all 3 of them well or well enough. But I think that there is something with like being too close to the art where is it your best? Is this the best case
Hmm.
scenario? Like, can you do it? Sure, but is this the highest quality? Like, there's a lot of room for error when it's just one person, and I think that there's something special about the creative process and collaborating with multiple people across the board and having a team. Maybe it's not one person or 3 people, like at least multiple people for checks and balances and just creative ideas and stuff. And if we're talking about like really creating high quality and beautiful, authentic content, like we should have more than one person just doing it all, including the
Hmm.
AI of it all. Like
Yeah.
the AI replacement of artists is like I'm fully against that. If we're talking AI to create tools to help artists or like, maybe some of those admin things that are annoying,
Hmm.
sure. But like, I mean, we're taking the jobs of other people. Like, I'm not with that at all.
I hear you. And quite honestly, I think that right now it feels like it's a gold rush, but I do feel like it's a bubble. And this is my theory. And I promise I'm going to get back on the highway. I'm just going to take this quick exit
No, 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 go
to
ahead.
opine. But I think it's a bubble because there was a whole lot of hype around. I remember, I think it was Suno when it was like, there was like an artist who like was released a song and it like charted and all the above. And don't get me wrong, I think if you want to create music and or if it's going to be film or whatever the case might be, and you might be able to do something creative that is essentially a derivative of so many things that are out there. But I feel like people, I mean, we say it all the time, people love authenticity.
Yeah,
And the thing that artificial intelligence cannot provide is, I think, that novelty that I don't think you can get a Sinners. I don't think you can get a I think Stevie Wonder, type, songs in the key of life type record. I think you can be successful and you might be able to do things that might even be chart topping or award winning,
Yeah.
but I don't think that you can be a cultural force. And I temper even like how I'm saying this because I don't want to sound like such a skeptic, but I don't think that you can really be that original when the basis like, literally, as a language model or as a video model, like, you're literally aggregating stuff from here, there, and everywhere, and yes, that's what we as humans do, but I
Yeah.
think that that unique fingerprint that comes from a lived experience brings about a product and a nuance in the conversation that AI at this point in time, I don't think is able to duplicate. And so that's why I'm not really buying into the hype of the total replacement. I'm with you on I feel like people are cutting corners. And
Yeah.
I think what's gonna happen is I think those who are original and those who are authentic are gonna have a creative edge that those who are copying will not.
Yeah, I think, I agree. It's multiple layers though, because it's like I think before AI, there were already people that were like the decision makers taking inspiration from the source, but then, like, cutting corners in the
Mhm.
production part, you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
those people are excited. They're like, "Oh, great, like, I don't have to pay Mark C to do this photo shoot. I can just put Mark C inspiration into AI
Right.
and create the photo shoot." You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
like and that's also why, like, when people talk about, like, gatekeeping the creative industry, like, that should have happened. Like, that should have absolutely happened because why are you even in the creative industry if you don't have respect for the authenticity of art? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you should go somewhere else. Like, don't come over here. But I think it's multiple layers. It's the budget's being cut, and the audacity of other humans, really.
Audacity of it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta I at least wanna touch on, I mean, we hit budgets from a planning perspective and from a, like, from the talent perspective in terms of what they can expect. I wanted because you hit the idea of, like, collaboration as a way to be innovative
Oh, yeah.
and not break the bank. My heart really is for a lot of especially young folks who look like us. You know, they're looking at YouTube content, they're looking at how accessible it is to create shows, create podcasts, all the above. You know, a setup like this, all it requires is internet and you're pressing record. But for some, it is gonna require a little bit of investment with, I feel like, the intentionality that you've been able to invest in your career. What could, especially a resource limited young outfit of friends, do like I'm thinking like if some young kids they're thinking like, "Oh, we wanna do the next Pop the Balloon," or "We wanna do the next, Surrounded," like, something to where it involves you having to go into a studio, book talent, you might have some people behind the camera. Like, talk to them about what are the mechanics they need to think through to really make a production happen? Like, yes, you can do overkill and think you need way more than you actually need, but you could also underestimate and think, oh, well, we can just, like, what do people need to think through when creating quality content, but doing it on a shoestring budget?
Yeah, that's a good, question. I think that and I have this conversation with some friends who are interested in, like, doing a short film or doing a thing, but they're such perfectionists that they think
Hmm.
that they need $50,000 to create it, you know what I mean? And I know people that have created beautiful, beautiful work with $5,000, you know what I mean? And I think it comes down to, like, community and then, again, like, the collaboration thing. So, I mean, the climate of, like, creatives right now is that you're always gonna know people or you can find people that are looking to do a project, whether that's like, you pay them like a smaller rate or you cover their lunch, like agree, or maybe you work on their project and they work on your project. Like there's some type of like not banter, but like
Bartering.
bartering, thank you. That can happen. We all have multiple different skill sets. Like I also DJ, so like maybe if I'm asking a DP to come in at a lower rate, like I can give my services, whether it's like in DJing or marketing or you know what I mean? Like there's I think those if people took the time to like really conversate with one another and be in community, they could identify like how to essentially make it work because it's not always just about monetary transactions.
Mhm.
But that being said, keeping it simple, I think, is, a good mindset to have. Like, your first project isn't going to be a Nike budget thing. It doesn't mean you can't make it look like a Nike, you know, commercial, but the realisticness, the honesty that you have to have with yourself about, like, I'm gonna shoot this how I can in the means that I can with the people that I can, and it's gonna be okay. Like, yeah, I want this to look like $1 million project, but like, I'm not there yet. It doesn't mean I won't be there, but like, kind of
Mhm.
having that, like, just do it scared or like just doing the thing, and putting the thing out. Like when I started DJing, even now, like there are times where I get very much in my head about creating content to post, and it's like I know how I want it to look, but, I either don't have the resources or the means immediately, or I'm holding off until I get these resources and things, and now 2 years have passed.
Mhm. Oh, yes.
What's more important? Doing like, putting out the content and tweaking it as you go, or just never being ready or waiting for that right time. I don't think that
Mhm.
there's ever, like, that right time. I'm working on a documentary right now, and we've been working on it for, like, 2 years now. The documentary space is different because I think that there's always something to say. You can always add information, you can always interview somebody else, you can always you know what I mean? Knowing when to stop is a really good thing to do, and that's hard for creatives. Like, I was an art major in high school, and I painted, and I would just, like, overpaint, if that makes sense. Like, I'd get to a
Yeah.
point, like, "Oh, it's not done. Oh, I'm gonna fix this. Oh, I'm gonna" just stop. And that's how I've gotten to that place now, but before, it's hard because, either the perfectionist or, the overcriticalness of yourself or your work, most people aren't even gonna notice.
Mhm. That's so true.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean, I've gotten to the point where I've had to get out of my head even with this podcast. Like, I've thought to myself, I was like, "Okay, I only have but so much time." It's like, I'm working a full-time job.
Yeah.
I've got a kid, I'm trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good friend. Also, I need to, like, actually have time to decompress. And so small ideas that I started realizing that I had to embrace was I was like, "Look, we don't have time for intros and outros. Like like, get the content up and out." One thing that I mean, it's anecdotal, and so hopefully as the show grows, people, I guess y'all will let me know, don't read me for filth in the comments. But, people, they appreciate you for who you are and what you offer. And, like, I think adding little extra going the extra mile sometimes, I think it is commendable. But I think to your point, if there's anything I want somebody to walk away from this conversation with is you gotta do it.
Just
And sometimes the extra step, the extra thing that's getting in your way is simply you just kicking the can down the
yeah,
road to either hopefully position yourself for some type of validation or to prove something to yourself or to somebody else. And in
yeah,
essence, we're wasting time chasing perfection
yeah,
when we can perfect along the way. We're always going to tweak,
yeah,
always. And so I think there's so much value in what you're saying, and I think even tapping into your network, I think you really hit that on the head too, because sometimes we don't really take inventory of the relationships that we have and how those relationships can complement what either party is working on. So I think that's really great. And I wonder, because you're dropping the wisdom and the gems here, is there something that you would advise, your younger self, the younger you who was maybe a little unsure of herself, the younger you who was, making that leap. I mean, obviously you leaped a couple times,
Mhm.
even when it comes to location. Like, what would you tell your younger self, seeing what you've seen and understanding how things have played out in your life?
Yeah. Um, One thing I wanna say before I move is also, like, when you are linking with people in community, and they're like and you find that person isn't really with it, move on to the next person. Like, not taking things personally, like, not trying to force the connection,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Because there's so many people out here that do wanna work and they are open to, like, trades or whatever it is. Like, find your people and, like, get out of your head of who your people are supposed to be or who they're supposed
Mhm.
to look like. And actually, I would probably say that to my younger self, little segue. I think that as a kid, I was very curious about a lot of different things. Like I was playing sports and I was playing instruments, and then I was over here and I was ice skating, I was dancing, and I was trying out a lot of things. And then I would get bored and I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore. My mom would be like, okay. And so I think that, sorry, I think that maybe giving myself, like, permission to explore things, um, from a more like, a deeper place. I don't think that I was necessarily raised in that type of environment, like, it wasn't really encouraged about my curiosity, it was very much like, "Go to school, get your grades," like, you know what I mean? Like, I played sports and I played them well, but, I'm first generation, my parents are from Haiti, and, like,
Mm.
sports scholarship, like, she didn't know my mom didn't know anything about that, like, I probably could have gotten one, but, like, it was about the grades, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, as much as I had times of not listening to my parents, I didn't really
That was the one thing I didn't
I mean,
rebel
like,
on.
I didn't listen to him, but I also, my voice and my fight didn't go so far. It just got me, like, into friction with them, and I do wish that I had, maybe done a little bit more, like, intentional research. It's like and I don't even wanna say, like, I wish I did because I just didn't know what I knew, but I think that, like, in college, I was doing all these events and, like, this was my, like, career, and I was working, and I got a lot of my, experience while I was in school because I was working the whole time, and so when I got out of school, I was able to get a job because I had a resume already. So I'm glad I had that foresight, but I didn't do any internships, like, I didn't really think about the long term, and maybe I didn't have, like I wasn't aware of that, and I kinda wish I had just sat down and been like, "Okay, but, like, what do you really wanna do? And, like, what step can you map out that will support that?" I think it's, like, cool to test the waters and be like, "Oh, okay, let me see how I feel about this. Okay, cool, let me see how I feel about this." But I think, there's some people that they know they wanna be a filmmaker from age 15, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I don't think everybody's like that, but, I do think, like, having the perspective of being a little bit more serious about, like, my talent, like, what that meant, um, would have been interesting.
Mhm. I can there are a lot of parallels, I feel like even, as you're saying that, I've started seeing, like, moments in my own life where I'm like, if I had only committed, a bit more, and it's kinda weird because I've grown to appreciate how things have played out, but I do wonder if I was a little bit more committed to certain things, like, in just to like you said, just, like, from a deeper place, I think I would probably even appreciate a bit more of about my career, and which I'm kinda, like, starting to do now, like, I'm becoming, like, especially having a child, like, I'll take her to the library, and I'm like, "You know what?" I work in communications, I'm like, "I'm gonna give me some books on, like, how to become a better writer." Like, I'm just gonna be true to the craft, you know? Uh,
Exactly. I
you
think
know?
as an art major, like, I was painting a lot. I also I was just like, "I'm not gonna be a painter isn't gonna bring me my career." Like, I didn't think I could make a living off of painting, but I think that with painting and my dad painted too as, like, a hobby, but, like, I understood the art history, like, the Van Goghs and the Kindi Wales and, like, all these, like, the historic, like, connection, and I did have some depth with that was probably the only thing I had, like, some depth and understanding and, like, emotional connection to. Everything else was, like, trial and error, like, "Oh, do I like this? Oh, do I like this?" But then at the end of the day, I didn't have the support to understand that, like, yeah, you actually can have a career from
Mhm.
being or design. I mean, I also think I don't know how old you are, but, like, that only became a thing when we were kind of, like, in college or when I
That
was in
is fair, yeah.
yeah,
I'm
like, I'm
37,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, same, I'm 36, so
Yeah.
I have grace, like, a lot of things are
Mhm.
different now, like,
Yeah.
the kids are, like, starting YouTube things, like, and
Yes.
stuff, so they're way better off, and I love that for them, but, yeah, same with you, like, I try not to live in the, like, "If only I should've," but it's definitely, like, I don't have any kids, but if I was mentoring a kid, I would definitely encourage them to, like, have a better understanding of why they like something.
Mhm. 100%. Um, so I'm gonna do 2 final questions to wrap up. The last one's gonna be easy. It's like, where do people follow you? How do they keep up? But I really want to I'm gonna I typically have thought about this question, but I'm adding it and because I guess I feel comfortable enough to do it now. Like, it's we're talking about, like, going and doing it. Because I think even as, like, this emerging podcast, like, really having to, like, shoot your shot and, like, go out and get guests and stuff like that, I really wanna know from your vantage point with the conversation that we had today, who is it that you would recommend that you said, "Mark, you need to get this person on the podcast because they will help add to this community, they'll help add to the conversation, and I'm going to take that as the challenge to go out and make it happen and go make the connect with them. And then, of course, wrap it up with how people can find you and follow along with you with
Yeah.
everything that you have going on.
I have 3 people that just came to mind.
Okay.
Um, Danielle Young, she's a friend of mine, she's a journalist. We met at Essence and, she's she would be a great person to talk to because the industry has changed so much and, like, just her insight of it all, like influencers becoming journalists and like, those pivots and then working with brands and stuff like that. So I think she would be great. I have a friend also, Kimmy Selden. She is like heavy in production. She worked on the she works on the Kamala Harris foundation like circuit. And then and she also started this community called a Black Girl Tennis Club.
Mm,
So yeah, like really cool, like super dope, really, really smart, and like has also gone through the weeds of it all. Actually, I'll land there with those 2.
nice. And how can people follow along with you to make sure that they're keeping up? I follow you on LinkedIn, but that may not be the only place where people can find
Okay. So yeah, LinkedIn, Fabienne Rock, is my full name. Um, I have Instagram, FAB_ROC_. Um, I did delete my TikTok, so bye. That's that. And then also like I'm also cool with emailing. So like if you guys want, anybody wants to email me, pen pal, email me, whatever has questions. Like, I do like to do these types of things. Like, so I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad we were able to schedule it. Um, connecting with like people, like I've never been a don't pick my brain type of thing, but don't pick my brain, take all my ideas. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
yeah, so but yeah, so I'm totally open to the community aspect of it all because it's important, and it's hard out here, especially in the creative space right now. So my email, fabienne.rock@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate it.
Well,
And we wish you nothing but the best. And you are always welcome here in the Convo Room. It's been such a great conversation.
thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.